I hope they don't do that this year. I will say that. All right, guys, let's get this party started. Let's start with an athlete we haven't watched yet. We've got Joey. I would assume just by this X-Men setup here that he's probably attempting a run slip and not a pull up with his team. All right, so rather than like cueing him initially, we'll get to that. Let's like go full podcast mode and discuss this bandit setup here and like what you guys' thoughts are. I have a couple thoughts on
Yeah.
it. I have some pros and I have some cons, and then I'll tell you which way I lean harder on. Jose, go ahead, lead it off.
It's fun that I coached Joy probably 3 weeks ago,
If
and
you coach
he
in
said,
Fort Lauderdale, you probably coach Joey. He goes all over.
yeah, and he was like, I want to know to do bar muscle ups, and we went through the movement, the positions, and he got very high, and I'm like, and at the beginning he said, okay, let me bring the bands, and I say, no, we're not working with bands. This was after the a workout already. And he got very high. And I said, okay, you're going to work for the rest of the week only that. Do not do the transition. Just trying to get high because he got it.
Kind of
He
like Elise is doing right now. Like she's not worrying about trying to do the muscle up. She's just worrying about her positions and
yeah.
floating on the bar. I do think that's one of the best things to do. And I and gymnastics can be so frustrating because some people are just eclipsed, right? And they feel where their body is, and they kind of just have this like weird reaction, and it works. And then there's people that are figuring out like what they're feeling, when the reaction time needs to happen, and it is a longer process. And I am a believer that like you're gonna have days where nothing goes right, and then you're gonna have days where nothing's going right, and then all of a sudden one rep goes right, and you're like, oh, that's what it is. And a lot of times I think that happens, especially in gymnastics, because the fatigue starts to set in. And when the fatigue sets in, you can no longer overcompensate like your pull up and your strength. So you kind of get forced to be efficient and use your body. Um, that kind of leads me into my thought of what I see here with the band. I'm going to play it again and like just try to pick some things up, or like even if it's not picking something that he's doing in this video, like think about why might we use this band or use this as a drill, because I don't want to throw it away as a drill. I think it can be a very useful drill, but in a certain circumstance. Give you guys a clue in a second. Is there anything you guys notice? Like if you took the bands off, what do you see?
That he can't really kip fully.
Yeah, it starts to like hinder his hip, and even
Yes.
like I think he does like a decent job at least getting into it in the front here, because some people don't even do that.
Yeah.
But what I don't like about it is he's actually not learning how to translate, I would say, this position here into using that snap back for momentum. He's solely relying on those bands pulling him for help and not how to actually use his body. So even if this drill went amazing and he just rips this perfect turnover muscle up, I don't know that the translation into not having those bands is going to work for him. I think it falls apart. As you can see it here, like if I was grading his arch, what's one thing this band did for his arch? That thing is awesome. It could be bigger. I think the band does maybe cut it back some, but like he's got tension in his legs. Everything is tight. I love that about this clip. One, because if he does get sloppy and he butt kicks himself, he's got no more band tension. So it kind of forced him to keep those legs straight and keep keep that tension. However, when he goes back into his other position, I don't really even want to call it a hollow. I know that's a little blurry. It kind of looks like he's just straight, right? You can tell he's more reliant on keeping the tension of the band than snapping back and making his body the band from going into that arch, back into that hollow fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like the bands, instead of helping, are restraining to do the arch properly, and then going on the hollow, it pulls the feet high instead of he controlling
He misses
the
like
hollow.
he misses that like full hip that he could be using. Right? Like look right there, like you can see he's like, oh, I gotta straighten the legs. I'm losing tension on the band. And his like focus is straightening the legs versus in that position there, his focus wouldn't be necessarily so much what's happening here, but more what's happening here and like having the press down and then getting that open more aggressively rather than, oh, I need to straighten my legs. I think he gets a lot more momentum. It's just so it's just the chicken wing I don't even care about because it's just I think a factor of he's just not getting high enough to get over the bar, and that's where like this chicken wing does like want to cover. Now, I think this drill could be useful, right? When as like a coach, when as a coach would you be more inclined to use this, or I would say like maybe he's in a smarter position to use. Like what is the athlete able to
think-
do and what are they capable of?
I think once they get the foundation good, like they got a good kip swing, and maybe he's just missing that turnover, and to feel that turnover, that's when you can do it. But I think you need to, he needs to go over the foundations and know, all that starting the nice kip swing, and how to maybe pop his hips up a little bit, and to push the bar down, all that before getting into the band.
Yeah, this is my personal, I would use this drill as a turnover drill. So like, I want Joey to have, I know he has like strict pull-ups and things like that. Like he has strength. So I don't think it was like putting him in a bad position at all, but I want him to be able to be damn close to that muscle up, or even better yet, be able to do some muscle ups. And then we just need to maybe conserve some fatigue. And I want him to work turnover more and get more reps of the turnover to practice more. Then I may assist him with like a band on that. There's another way to do it though. We can, set up a jumping muscle up or like a barbell across the rig, something like that. And it's like that person's not practicing the skill of their kip and all that stuff. They're literally practicing the turnover. Like I just had a conversation with Deanna this week, and she was saying, well, when she turns over the bar, it's like she smashes her stomach on the bar and scrapes it all up, and there's no tension. So like a low bar turnover drill for her may be good because we can get a lot of reps in and get practice, but work on when the turnover happens that it's not throwing herself on top in relaxation. It's constant tension and pressing into the dip rather than flopping like a fish overboard. Does that make sense? So I would want to work the transition for him, but I would be more inclined to maybe do it on a lower bar. And then what Jose was doing, have him do that kip and have him like really work that, like get to a point where he's not doing chest to bar pull-ups anymore. He's doing like literal ab to bar. And then we're like, okay, Joe, it's there. You've now practiced all of these turnovers. Let's just put them together. Does that make sense to you guys? Watch it one more time. There's one more thing I noticed that I don't like.
Is it that he keeps like re-dripping?
Yeah, and I was gonna take back my statement because I just remember that part right there. Like he shoots his hand off a little bit, but he's got his thumb wrapped around, so we got him good with that. That just could have been weak. But that thumb shooting off, you do see that a lot, especially in like high volume, high fatigue people that have bar muscle ups, but they're not like insanely strong at them, and they suicide grip. like they'll shoot off and they'll bruise up ribs and stuff like that. And it can be in a bad situation, but he does have his thumb wrap. He just must have lost that. But yeah, I don't like that he's fidgeting a lot. What do you guys think about his grip? Obviously, he's not comfortable, right? He keeps messing with it. Think about where's the pressure of the bar in his hand?
I mean, he should
More on
be
his
over
fingers.
the bar more.
Yeah, it's in like his fingers, and I think that's what makes it like not a super strong grip. So like what Dee's saying, just get on top of the bar more. And it doesn't have to be the stick ball grip, but just a little more. So now it's like the knuckles are on top, and I always say like the meat, like any meaty part of your hand, like make it a meaty grip, and it'll feel stronger. And I think when he does get higher, and he does have this turnover, like see how he is forced to, how much he's forced to actually rotate the hand on the bar. He doesn't need to go to that extreme of rotation, and he probably doesn't lose his grip. I haven't seen Joey move in a long time, but what I will say is I'm sure he's pretty close in like he's in the ballpark of a bar muscle. You guys, Isa, I know you and Jose, you've seen him move. What would be, do you guys feel like, put your coaching hat on, do you feel like he needs a prescription of more strength? Or do you think it's solely skill?
Yeah, he
think
only
it's-
needs to practice. It's only the moment, to know what part of his body is and what time he had it.
Yeah.
So I would like give him that prescription, like show him, you know, Jose, I know you showed him like those kipping drills and those like ab to bar drills. I need to film one of those anyway, so I'll try to film one so you can see a good one. It's one thing I'm pretty decent at. Keep having him work those, and then Issa, I think maybe not with the band, but have set him up on a challenging, doesn't have to be a super easy one, like jumping muscle up, like put a bar on a rig or get a box.
That's actually what I told him. I didn't give him the band. He was just working on them, and I decided to record it. And I told him, I was like, we should try it on the box next time.
And Joey's one that like he's really good at watching Instagram and seeing things, and he's like, I'm gonna try this. I've seen him do that a lot, and we've had a ton of conversations about it. Like he was gonna do a press the handstand on the corner of a box one day. First of all, if you can do a press the handstand, you either have a gymnast background or you've been working years on doing that, and then let alone on the corner of a box. It's a real bad idea. Real bad idea. So it's good to know that about athletes too, like who watches Instagram and wants to try things and who doesn't. And being able to have some of those explanations of whys behind why is this person showing you the drill? Because at least I think a lot of Instagram people aren't doing it to really help that much. They're doing it for likes, comments, and shares. They're doing it for the clout of being an influencer, not doing it to say, hey, the band's gonna fuck your hip up. This drill should be used for turnovers. Like I guarantee you, he did not see that in that video. So it's good to just like tool yourself with all those like explanations.
He was also wondering though about the chicken wing because he got a few reps. Like he actually made it over the bar a few times, but it was always a chicken wing. And
Always
he was wondering
sideways.
Why that happens? Yeah.
So he does throw his foot. I think for this exact like example of this video, I'm just gonna drag it. He's just really not high enough, and sometimes I think the chicken wing starts to develop because the person really isn't high enough. So sometimes they get lucky and they get a side over, and then they can kind of auto adjust. But if you notice, like what side is he throwing over? This arm, right? And which side is leading the way in this in the finish of this kip? It's also this side. So what ends up happening is even when he starts to get muscle ups, he's now developed the accidental skill of when he kips, he's going to throw a hip. So like his right hip will get thrown at the bar, and you'll see those feet separate. It's going to be a good drill for him. And even in like a low bar turnover, to start to practice the legs staying together and the hips staying square. Because if those get off and it teeters, one side's going to have more momentum to get over. And even people that rip multiple reps of bar muscle ups, but they teeter, they'll chicken wing all of them just because one has more help than the other. So stay more square. What's a good drill you can do for that. Really simple, like tactile view. You guys have done it. I know everyone. So if someone's like chicken winging a bar muscle up,
Oh.
or if they're kipping and they look like a scorpion, what's a tactile you can give them? You guys have all done it, I guarantee it.
Something between your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, put a towel between his feet. And I would rather like the rep of a towel between his feet and he ends up going from a bar muscle up to an ab to bar, but it's square. That'll at least start to solve the problem. Like be okay with sometimes taking a step back and take a step forward. I don't think we do that enough as athletes and as coaches. Because sometimes it's a hard conversation to have. Anything else on that, on the banded or bar muscle ups?
What about, not in this case specifically, but what about like the 2 bands versus 1 band?
I will say the 2 bands at least gives him a window. So like I think with 2, he's a lot more, or anyone, not just Joey, is a lot more inclined to actually getting into a kip versus 1 band. It's going literally in front of your face.
Yeah.
And there's some savages of the world that don't care, and I've seen them kip into 1 band and they just push their face into it. But I think the majority of people just aren't going to do that. So I do think the 2 band setup is a good setup for it, because at least you're not, and you know, for us guys too, we have a private part that we don't want to smash either. So it's like a double for us. Let's look at let's stay on the gymnastics train and let's look at I have 2 videos of handstand walks. All right, you guys should see Isa in this one, right? I have to find it. So I've got a video of Isa handstand walking. She's pretty good at it. And I have a video of me handstand walking. I'm pretty good at it. So we got to teach some handstand walking skill the other day. And obviously, like when you first see that as a coach, you're like, oh shit, I know 9 out of 10 people aren't going to be able to do this, right? So you have to have this really, really solid plan for everyone that can't do it. And I do want to touch on that and like talk about like stuff I do and maybe stuff you do, because it's one that I think more tools in the toolbox as a coach or an athlete's even better. But I did have some people that were like ninjas, like picked up on their hand and they could fly across the room. And I felt the EMOM that we were doing for them wasn't hard enough. Like they were just flying. And we're at the point in handstand walking that I think no one cares that you can go in a straight line now. It's cool to do circles and objects and the things like that. So I started coaching them in those things to make sure they were still challenged, which we should be doing with all athletes, but this is just a really good example. So let's watch hers. And it's definitely like a nice job, you said, if you're coaching class. Like if she's doing that and everyone else is moving, she's probably not your main concern, right? You're just like high five, keep not cracking your head open. Good job. But let's like put on a deeper hat here. Like if you're a coach and Isa is a borderline quarterfinals athlete, he's got to just jump a couple spots to get into semifinals. And we know as her coach that semifinals may have handstand walking, and not only handstand walking, but in a very savage workout at potentially a higher skill. So like, I want you to look at everything on her positions, everything, and be hypercritical and look for holes in this.
I think she has like a very big arch, maybe she could work on her arch.
You're on the right track.
Yeah, that happens to me, and I don't engage my abs, and I end up with lower back pain after handstand walk, which is like you never you don't do anything with your back, but I
Yeah,
don't
one
engage
of the
abs.
guys that I just added in, after his 3rd rep, when he came down, I saw him rubbing his back and had that exact conversation with her. So you guys see what I see. Now, what's the root cause though? Like, yes, if the abs totally disengage, it can happen. So that is a part of it. So that person may just need some more tension, right? What could be another root cause?
99% of the time, it's because of shoulder mobility. And if you usually it's the shoulder mobility. There is that 1% of the people that just aren't pulling the ribs in and engaging the core, but most people it's just they don't have
I
the
agree.
required.
I agree with Justin. I'm trying to get a point where we're kind of
Interesting. Never thought about that.
yeah. So I statistically wise, don't know if it's 99 cent, but 99%. But what I will say, the majority is a shoulder thing, and it's not that Issa's shoulders are like crazy tight, like they're not, but they're not. I wouldn't say the most mobile. Like there is some tightness in the shoulder flexion. So with handstand walking, that's the first thing I actually noticed. Like there's the obvious, like could her legs be more perfect? Yeah, like there could be more tension there. It could be more together. But really, she does a pretty good job. They're not flailing around. They're at least pretty static. So even though it could be that much better, that's really not where my head goes at all. Like we're not trying to get 10 out of 10 points at a gymnastics meet. We're trying to be efficient CrossFitters. It's going to be the shoulders here. So with her handstand walk, the skills there, I'm very happy with it. What I'm actually going to do to work on her handstand walk is shoulder mobility, right? Because now, if we think of a couple things, Jose said, okay, well, my back hurts. And that's because the person has this really, overarched back. It's hyperextended. You have your transverse processes, they're these little bones. I would say they're like the spikes out of the dinosaurs' backs. Ours is very small. And those can even touch depending on the degree of that hyperextension. And sometimes under load, they will actually crack and break, and you can officially say you broke your back. Not that they're going to break here, but it can cause a lot of discomfort and they can have some contact. So besides like the back hurting, if this was a workout that she was doing that had heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, or something like that, now we're going back and forth from this really hyperextended state to also putting load on top of it. It may be not a great combo. Beyond that, why is this a problem?
Well, this is going to just tax the shoulders because she's not using as much of her core for stabilization. She's like muscling through it basically.
Yeah,
it's fine if it's like a short little burst like this, but if you start, getting some long workouts.
If I pair this with wall balls, like that's going to get real interesting real fast in the shoulders. Or if it's a pairing, like we've seen at the games where it's handstand walking also at a high skill with handstand push-ups and like pull-up rig, anything that we're going to tax the upper body with is gonna double down, because now we're not a stacked joint position, we're a closed off joint. So what's got to make up for that is now the musculature actually has to go into overdrive, because it's no longer a stiff arm in football. It's like, how strong am I to push the guy off in football? You guys get that analogy?
Yeah, you know what? It's also a problem
It's an
because
efficiency thing.
okay, now you're walking, but the moment that they change, now go up, you're gonna feel, hey, now I have to arch it more.
Yeah,
Or if
that's
I
very
have
true.
to turn around, now I have to open my legs and to make it balance. So I
Yeah.
have problems doing change of movements because I'm
Going-
really arch.
Going up a ramp would definitely be the hardest. Going down a ramp would probably be a lot easier for like someone with tighter shoulders that's closed, but up would definitely be a challenge. There would have to be more of an arch, or now the person isn't like kind of just using gravity to fall to move. Now they're actually probably having to move their body mass with like pressing on the floor and dragging, which we don't really want to do. So like the actual handstand and the skill of it, it just absolutely crushes and murders. If we can just take what the skill she has and get those shoulders a little more opened up, we're killing it. What's a couple? Give me 2 or 3 shoulder openers that she can do that take a couple seconds, or like as a warm up for shoulder overhead or handstand walks.
Butcher block is the #1 go-to for overhead flexion.
Say that again.
Butcher block.
What is that? Oh, and like open up your thoracic. Yeah, have you guys seen that? I call it the prayer stretch. Prayer stretch is good. If you want to also put that with a PVC pipe, you can mimic like a front rack really nice as well. I like to do that. Thanks for bringing that up. I actually forgot about that one. That's a great stretch. D, what were you going to say? So that could definitely work.
I have a couple that I usually suggest. One would be hanging from the bar, with a supinated grip. Try to bring your head through. That opens your lats, and then with a med ball and either a 15-pound bar or like a PVC with a 5-pound in it, then you just like kind of lay on the ball.
That ball's like in the thoracic spine.
Yeah, and then you like just reach back. That'll also open up.
That's a good one. So with all three of yours just now, they were a little more passive, which they can be for sure effective. And I do like all of those. Like I would implement those, especially like the bar hang one. The bar hang one and that you called it a butcher block.
Yeah.
Butcher block, pair shirts, whatever you want to call it. Like those are easy to access and like get into for athletes. I think sometimes the easier you make something, the more likely you are to get them to do it. So I like those a lot for that. With the hanging from the bar and a supinated grip, you can make that even better by adding tempo. You can just do a jumping, but then tempo down, because now you're also getting the lat and like the shoulder opened up with like muscles working, not just passively. So tempoing down could be great. Make it even better. That will also help with the front rack. What about dumbbell pullovers? Dumbbell pullovers could be really good. I would have that with a tempo and a pause overhead. So like they have a moment of stretching. One of my favorites is box rocks. You guys know what box rocks are? So it's like you're gonna do a handstand push-up modification on a box, right? You get on a box, your feet are on or your knees are on, and you're completely upside down. You're gonna shift forward, so you're gonna actually close your shoulders off, and then you're gonna shift through the window of your arms and just hold. And it's just very slow shifts back and forth. I really like that one because especially in the upside down position, it's automatic feedback of where you are. So you're actually feeling what your shoulders feel like upside down in those positions too. Box rocks are a really popular one, like amongst gymnasts. You see that a lot. Some people do it on the wall, do a full wall walk and do it. I tried that once, but it scares the hell out of me. Sorry, I didn't see if she had to run. Did you put a comment?
Yeah, she had to go.
That's okay. I missed it. Yeah, box rocks would be another really good one. Let's look at different handstand. Sorry, for I think I might have just thrown it away. Hold on, let me check it. Let me give it a second there. Oh, no, I found it. You guys sent me so many videos and the screen's a nightmare right now, but it's a good thing. It's really a lot in here. All right, there we go. Different handstand walk. So just a quick pause. Do you see the difference in like me and Isa when it comes to the shoulders? Like the shoulders are much more stacked and I'm not having to hyperextend my back really at all. Like the only little movement that way is for momentum and actually moving. So like it's a good, I wanted to use these back to back because it's pretty good compare and contrast when it comes to that. And I try a party trick, but it doesn't go well, so you don't need to see the end of that. All right, so kind of a different a different take. Like we don't have a mobility restriction going on, right? Shoulders are super open. I never ever had back pain when I handstand walk. There's something else that happens, and I try to go for a pirouette, which I would say I probably have a 40% success rate on. So I have an F when it comes to pirouettes. Let's analyze why. We can see enough in this video that I don't need a pirouette necessarily.
I think you have to do smaller steps when you try to do the.
100% one of them. So if you look, like you can barely see it, but watch this next step from my hand. I think the next step with the hand, my hand should still be in screen. My next step is like full 180. I'm like, let's go for it, right? So that's definitely part of it. And that's when I add in more of a little choppy step, it does get a lot better. So that's something to watch when, like, you know, I had these athletes that were crushing handstand walks, and one of them was flying 2 pirouettes and the other one was trying, and they would get about halfway every time and fall. And it was just because they were trying to step at the same distance that the handstand walk in, and the circle was just too big. So they would collapse it down and they would break it down. There's one more thing that happens with me specifically.
I think maybe playing, like, I know, like, you'd have tension, but I think maybe when you're going around, you need to bring your feet back in, maybe, and not just
Yes.
have them like dangling.
So
It kind of,
this leg's great, right? He's playing ball. This guy's like a freaking renegade. I don't know. And all of my handstand walks are like that. Like I have videos where this leg is not moving at all. The other leg is literally bouncing on the side. And it's just, I've gotten really good at balancing to where it doesn't make me fall. Most of the time when you see someone's leg start to bounce like that or really split off, that's their instant fall moment. They don't have the balance to continue to move and walk in their hands. Now for me, straight lines are no problem, right? Turning around is a problem. Pirouettes is a problem. Going up and down ramps is actually no problem. I'm pretty good at those. But any kind of going from straight back and forth to a circle or side to side, I can't do it. And that's part of why. Like this leg gets way too far off to the side, and then I start to turn in that direction, and there's just so much momentum going there because I'm not stacked up and tight. I've got already more weight to the, I don't even know, right than I do the left. So when I make the turn, it doesn't go well. I don't have the strength to like in the balance and counterbalance it. So when you start to see people do these circles and, you know, turnarounds, even like if they were like zigzagging, like whatever it is, and we're going away from the straight forward and back motion, it becomes even more crucial to be stacked in position. And there's some people that aren't perfectly leg stacked and they still have the knee bend, but if you watch them, it's always balanced on each side of that plane. Nothing's moving on one side that's not on the other, and there's a more of a static nature that's happening, not swaying around. So that's something to really pay attention to when you do have these higher level athletes, and they are starting to get into pirouettes and different kinds of obstacles there, or for yourself. And it's literally, you tell me to tighten that up and take smaller steps, it goes from an F to probably a C+ or a B, like just with that one thought. So it really doesn't make that. Any other like thoughts or questions on that? You nailed that, Heath. For handstand walks, since it is kind of a challenging thing to coach, or even, you know, as you're learning how to do them and getting better at them, what are some progressions or tools that you guys like to use?
I'm getting on a box and either shoulder taps or at least like try to just raise their hands a little bit and kind of go back and forth. Depending on how good they feel, like if they can do a handstand and they're pretty stable, then I'll just put them like a few feet away from the wall and have them do like a few steps and find the wall with their leg, with their foot. Just depends where they're at, really.
Yeah, both of those are good. I do exactly that. Like I usually warm up everybody and I have everyone get on a box and have them just do and hold, and I get them into a better position. Because really, it's like, yes, it's a warm up, but for me, it's an analyzation of who am I not gonna let do this today? Because that's one that can go south on just one turn of the head, and they decide to go for it, and it doesn't go well. So it's really my analysis as a coach to see who I'm going to be like, hey, don't progress, stay here, or I know where I'm going to cut them off. So I think that a box would be a really good start. I like the addition of like a little shoulder tap, or just shifting weights, because one, it's going to show even more shoulder stability, because we do have those moments of single arm. And it does start to teach them skill. It teaches them like the weight does have to shift back and forth. It can't stay 50-50 the whole time. So I would go from that. I have a couple things that would bridge the gap from there to, we're gonna do a mini handstand walk to the wall. What's some other ideas? Simple stuff too, even.
Do it with a spotter.
Spotter, yeah. I always like to see like a partial wall walk. Because
yeah.
what I've found, and I've learned this the hard way, you can have someone that has plenty of strength to be in a handstand, but when they kick up, they don't know how to keep their shoulder open, and they kick up and they let their shoulder close, and they're like back hits the wall, and they slide down because it's really hard to hold your body weight with a closed shoulder, and they land on their head. So like essentially they've kicked up and they've slid down the wall, landing on their head, sometimes decently hard. So I'll have them do a partial wall walk, and I'll really coach the active shoulder. So then when I go, hey, this is how we kick up with back against the wall, they understand that they cannot allow softness, and they cannot allow a closed shoulder. Because you can be as hard pushing into the floor with no elbow, but if you let it close, it's going to happen anyway. So a lot of times I'll bridge a wall walk before a kick up. And then if I've got just all athletes I know, hey, let's kick up on the wall and go. I know that. If I don't know a couple people or somebody, I have people do a partial donkey and like get a little bigger. So they start to feel their body weight in the kick up as they're going. The reality is, if you guys are in my class and I'm having people do 5 reps of a donkey kick, and you can kick up on the wall, what are you probably going to do anyway? Probably just going to kick up on the wall. So it's like not a concern, for you guys, that I'm not necessarily hindering. So I'll have people do donkeys, and if it is some like a class that I know people are good, I'll tell them to kick up and not actually touch the wall. So I start to have them practice kick up and just a second or two freestand and then back down. So they kind of do an extreme donkey kick.
So we had that, think Camp programmed it. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. It was like handstand holds. And, I gave various options, and one of them was to do donkey kicks, because they could do a wall walk and stand, facing the wall, but they had, just trust issues with just getting up, with their back against the wall.
Building the confidence.
Right. So then this one lady, she can't do a full wall walk. And when I had her do the donkey kick, she was having that problem, like that she wasn't kind of staying stable on her shoulders. She was bringing her back to the wall. I thought that it was maybe kind of like the shoulder stability, because when I put her on a box, because I did put her on a box to see if she could have a good position, and she did have a good position, but on a box. But once I put her and I tried, I said, okay, so then let's start right here and see, and like it wasn't actually helping. So then what could I give her so that she can maintain that position while doing that?
So if you have someone that can do a partial wall walk, but they really can't, or they can do like a rep of a full wall walk. So like if we're thinking open standard wall walk, where you get your hands 10 inches from the wall, and you also have to control your walk back. Like I want to see the whole rep. I don't even want to just 50% of the rep. If you have someone that's either going to be able to do 1 or 2 of those, or not really get there at all, then I think they still need to maybe remain in the partial and just do holds and I'm gonna have them do holds and be really on top of them with like an active shoulder, because she needs to build more strength. Like if she can get upside down, but it's at a 45 degrees, she's still really not
Correct.
full
Okay.
body weight in. So
Okay,
yeah, I
so-
would just keep building strength with her, and then get creative. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to make her do a wall facing, 45-degree angle hold every
Like
time.
dumbbell holds or like carries.
You can do dumbbell holds. You can put them on a box. I love this one, by the way, guys. If you want to just mix things up for someone it's a whole day, and put them on a box, put a plate in between their hands, and then have them start to walk up and down on the plate. You want to talk about blows your shoulders up, and just from an athlete perspective, like gaining stability and stamina, really, really good drill. And obviously you could dictate the height of the plate to make it easier or harder, but like that would mix things up for her and give her, some excitement rather than always just holding.
Okay.
When I have them like do their wall walk or even the handstand hold on the wall, I don't let them just do it. I'm like, on my count, I make them go. And then I'm coaching and I'm like, 8, 7, I coach, 4, 3, and it's like really on my call, because the ones that can't maintain will come off naturally. So I'm like, okay, like we need to work stability. And then the ones that like barely make it, they're looking like newborn deer shaking. And then I'm like, okay, let's stay here. It gives me this analyzation time for the class, also by me really controlling that. So all of those things are really good. And we're debating in our head, like, is the strength there, is stability there? Is it just a skill thing? Like we're picking apart each person as we go through these stages. If I'm having people kick up on the wall, and they can kick up on a wall, they have no issue doing it, right? And I have that. And then I want to get them to kicking up and taking 3 or 4 steps to the wall and doing a handstand walk. I've got a gap there, right? I can't kick up on the wall and slam my feet into the wall and then suddenly pull somebody off 2 or 3 feet and expect that to go well. They're probably not. They're probably going to overshoot it and have this kind of awkward fall, but they're not going to fall because the wall's closed. Use your imagination. Like, what's something you guys can do to kind of bridge that and keep it very
Have them
safe?
go around, like have them do it on a box and walk around the box, maybe?
No, because they need to get good at kicking up and balancing. It's not a moving hands situation. It's a
Okay.
making sure they don't pick up and back plant situation.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So once we go through picking up on the wall, and I'm analyzing like how well can they kick up and what their strength is, then I tell them that wall is no longer concrete.
So
This
go
wall
soft.
is
Yeah.
This wall is a sheet of paper, right? And if you have a sheet of paper and it's got some tension, I can put some pressure on it and it's not going to rip. However, if I go poke my finger fast through it, it's going to rip. I'm going to go right through it. And I would say like the football team coming through the little celebration thing at the beginning of the game, right? So what I'm trying to get them to do and use their imagination is that they're going to pick up and they're going to it's going to kick up. It's going to slow down. They're going to get to this kind of floaty point, and then they're going to kind of just fall into the wall very softly.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not this kick up that's bam, and I do a handstand push up like you see. It's this like real float. Okay, I'm balanced, centered, and then I'm not really that good at it yet. So then I just kind of fall over and touch the socks. That's your cue that like, okay, you didn't rip the paper. That's what we want. And then when they do kick up and they slam their feet in the wall, you sound like a funny guy when you're like, oh, you ripped the paper, you fell. And then they laugh, but they know what they did wrong, and they start to bridge the gap from kicking up and always relying on the wall. And now kicking up like that wall really doesn't exist. And if they do slightly mess up, it's okay, but they cannot mess up grossly. That works when it comes to like the skill of handstand walking. That is like my secret weapon. Because you start to get people that do 5 or 6 in a row and they just float and they touch the wall. And now you're like, dude, you're handstand walking, you just don't know it yet. That little bit of float and fall is your momentum to start moving your hands. So let's back up 10 more inches, do exactly that. And then right when you start to feel like you're gonna fall, I just want you to take 2 steps and you're at the wall. And it's just a really beautiful gap into getting into that handstand walk. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, and also like coming off of the wall, I've had to really like coach them coming off the wall and not just falling hard on both their feet.
Yeah, that is a thing. Like especially on wall walks, people just nosedive it. So wall walks, I'm very strict on like let's control down, then coming off the wall too, because then you get people that get cute and they're like, I'm gonna go sideways, and they have a partner by them. Like I've seen that, and I've seen people get kind of kicked. So it's a very taken for granted thing among us, but that's a great point. Like we do want to make sure to be like giving some instruction and teaching that. But I had those 2 handstand videos, so I wanted to dive in because I know Mayhem also has a handstand WOD next week. It's got deadlifts and bars. All right, let's go one more. Justin, trying to look for your Isabel video. I think this is it. That was Isabel you were doing in this, right?
Yeah, this is the one I was saying. It was an absolute disaster. When I watched it back, I was like, it wasn't as bad. It felt terrible though.
I love it. I think the last 10 reps of Isabel or Grace, like in deep down inside, you feel like those are always a disaster anyway. But yeah, it's
No, my
you
last
just-
5 were horrible.
Yeah,
Seriously.
it gets shoddy.
I recorded it. It's horrible.
If you told me this was like, oh, this is a disaster, I'm gonna send you this video. I definitely am on the more refreshed side that I'm like, oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. So I agree with you there. Let's play it through. We don't have to watch the entire Isabel, obviously, but so given we know what this workout is, right? It's 30 snatches per time. We know this thing is going to start to hurt at like rep 11 to 15 range. That's where Isabel really gets real. You're coaching, you're being relentless, you're forging elite humans. What's your scream at you for Justin?
I would say
And go ahead,
wait,
Cayman.
the bent elbow in the pool.
Yeah, that's my fastest one for sure. Like, could there be some other things? Absolutely. Like, he could be a little bit better, whatever. But like, that's where there's so much power getting lost. That especially in a workout like this, that the power output is just really turned up, and there's all gas, no brakes. That's going to make a huge difference in especially the back end of this thing. Scream a cue out for me.
Jump then pull.
Jump then pull. I would go as much to be the most exaggerated person and stand right in front of him, scream it and demo it, because I don't want to even be on the side of him to where he goes, what? Because I care that every second counts on this Isabel, right? I don't want him to even lose a second. So I'm going to make sure I'm in a good spot for him to hear me, that he doesn't have to slow. And if he doesn't get what I said, because I think a lot of times verbiages are like, what? Especially when you're in this state, I'm going to get in front so he can see it also. So it's like I went visual and verbal at the same time. So hopefully he just picks up. All I need him to do is pick up. Definitely agree with what you said the other week. The first touch and go 10 is a bad idea.
Yeah.
But
If
what
you
I
saw,
would,
there's a point where I try to do like back to back two, like maybe like on like 17th to 18th rep, and it was just bad idea.
no, it's not gonna go. It's not gonna go well.
Yeah.
I finished on a double when I did it, which I had missed my PR by like a minute. And I finished on the double, and the second one was probably one of the ugliest snatches I've done in a long time. So it is like once you hit that point, it's very hard. Good time though. Like I definitely wouldn't call it a dumpster fire. Dumpster fire is ask Andrea Lopez about Grace at the box throwdown if you haven't got the chance to say it. That's dumpster fire. When it starts to take 9-10 minutes and people are failing lifts and they're starfishing, and like that's what I think of when you say it looks terrible. We'll quickly just watch like the touch and go part, see if you can touch anything else.
I went into this by the way, planning to do 5, and then just after the 5th one, I said, go for 10. Terrible idea.
Always a terrible idea. So like looking at your extension too, like you actually do jump fairly well, but it's like what Cayman said, like those arms are just so anxious to start the pull that it's like I think it just even though you are extending fairly decent, you're just gonna start to really just tax that upper body. You know we have Grace next week for the Mayhem people, right? Coming.
We
Anything else you
cannot
guys
see
wanna
it.
add?
We cannot see it 1 week apart. So we have Grace. What day is
Oh,
that?
you guys can't?
No.
It's Wednesday or Thursday. It's one of
Or
those
can
days.
we? Can we?
You're a coach. You should be able to see everything.
No, it's not there. Shy updates it every Sunday, so
He puts it in manual.
I didn't know that you can.
Mayhem just uploads for us. Mayhem uploads, and then I go in. My new job at my new gym is I go in and I do all logistics. So I do have to change some stuff. But we
Yeah.
get like an auto population that
That
happens.
may be an additional service.
It could be. Yeah, it
Yeah.
could be.
Because I know for CAP, there is some company that inputs it for you, but it's a service.
So CAP, the problem with CAP is CrossFit. I don't know if they still are, but CrossFit had a contract with Beyond the Whiteboard. So when CAP became a thing, Beyond the Whiteboard allowed like Sugar Watt and all these other things to be used, but they didn't allow Wodify to auto-populate. So then you had to go input in Wodify. So that's probably why it's an additional service. They probably found that to make gym owners' life easier, and why it's not free.
Yeah.
I think that's just a contractual thing.
I gotta leave, guys. Bye-bye.
Go ahead, CD. The last thing I want to say on this, Justin, is you do a great job with like when you do set up, like you set your back and all of those reps look the same. So even though you felt like this was a dumpster fire and we could definitely fix those arms, like applaud yourself on that, because especially things like Isabel and Grace that it's so fast moving, you do see people get real weird, real sloppy. They start to disengage the shoulders and lats and they're jumping around. So nice job with that. I'm super happy that. You guys have or like almost 3 minutes. Well, you guys have anything you want to add before we call it a day?
After yesterday, or I'm sorry, after was it Tuesday, we were talking about constricting versus elongating the muscles and the different fatigue. I practiced that yesterday with some back squats, like real slow coming down, and it killed me. So
Awful. Yeah,
yeah.
it's real bad. It's a very humbling experience. The first time you start to really feel that, you're like, oh shit, like I just went from squatting 225 to 115 and I'm shaking. Also, I don't remember if I said this, but along with like just beyond the musculature part, those tempos in the time under tension, tendons also respond very well to that. So if you are a person or you have an athlete that's like, man, coach, like, and you can tell in the warm-ups, like you start to warm up and everything's real ginger, and then they take a body weight lunge and it doesn't really feel good, and they do the first like 10 air squats and it doesn't feel good, and their knees are very achy, but then they get really warm and all that achiness goes away and they're good. And then when they get cold, all the achiness comes back. That's a sign of tendinopathy. That's the proper term. A lot of doctors just call it tendinitis. But what tendinopathy is the tendon is just like had a lot of wear and tear, and it's been exposed to a lot of like very high intense work. So like, what's that sound like? It sounds like CrossFit. You see it a lot with runners, people who jump a lot, things like that. There's also impact. And the best way to describe it is, you know how if you take a rope, like the ropes you climb in the gym, and you twist it the nice way, the rope is beautiful. It's all wound nice. If you twist it the other way, the rope kind of frays up and doesn't look so nice. That's how you can like think about how your tendon gets. So the tempo work is how you would prescribe fixing that for an athlete and like rebounding that rope. So beyond like gains and stuff, it's a good thing to implement. Go ahead, Justin.
So tendinopathy is like one of the main injuries that happens in yoga, and it tends to happen by hamstring insertion, or the tendon in the hamstring region. And so it comes from all the forward folding, right? And the fix for that from like a PT is go do some strengthening, go do some hamstring strengthening, and that helps also strengthen the tendons. So
yeah, they say like I think like you could if you had someone that really didn't do a lot of strength, you just went and did like normal strength without a tempo, it would probably still work. But they say like the time under tension is where like the magic really happens with it. So for us, it's CrossFitters that we are always lifting weights. We have to really slow things down. That's super interesting. I would have never guessed yoga. That's common, but good to know. I think with CrossFit, you see it a lot, like elbows, shoulders, and knees are the mains that we have it. But if you've ever experienced that, or you have an athlete, sometimes you'll have people that be like, "Oh, I just have bad knees," and it's not. They just have tendinopathy and they need tempo work. Elevated squats are even better for the knees because you get more quad and it gets more exposed as well. I'm glad you played with that. I still have to put the lactic acid stuff. I'll do that right when we get off the call so you guys can play with that. I forgot for a second.
Will you add, you said something too last Tuesday about like the VO2 max, something like 15 on, 45 off or something like along those lines. Would you share like a program or some sort of WOD just to play around with it? I thought you mentioned something like that.
Were we talking about, is that when we were talking about the intervals?
Yeah, I think it was intervals because it was during the lactic acid conversation, but it was something along those lines.
I think the intervals, like the research is like somewhere between 3 and 4 minutes.
Yeah, it was 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off. And they did that 4 rounds. I think Jose probably recalls it too. It's like Norway or the Norwegian or something.
And those 4 minutes on are full send, like head exploding. Gotcha.
Yeah, and you're gonna take a good rest. Like it's not like you're gonna do 4 minutes with a minute rest. Like you're probably gonna do a 3-4 minute rest after that 4 minutes, so then you can duplicate as well, like a true interval. You have it in your notes there, Jose?
Yeah, but it says it's Norwegian. Yeah. 4 minutes on, 3 minutes. I have it. Recovery in 4 rounds. 4 times. But it's just one paper that showed that was the one doing the kind of interval that shows improvements on VO2 max.
I think too, you have to consider like some of these studies are also done like in a vacuum. Like they're hooking somebody up, they're doing this one thing, and like the human body doesn't work with like one thing necessarily. So I think it's good to know that information and to definitely have like intervals implemented in our programming, which we should. Like that's part of CrossFit methodology anyway. But also like I wouldn't say don't go out and program everything you do intervals. Like I still like touch on, everything that we can possibly touch on and have that variance. The other thing for Tuesday, before I forget, Kevin, you were interested in talking about like gym procedure when it came to like personal training and things like that.
The process of
that right?
Yeah, marketing yourself and developing that clientele and then negotiating appropriate like rates with your current gym and just like the whole process of it.
Okay, I'll get into that. I don't know. I'll send this in the group too. I don't know if I'll be able to find like actual material on that. I'm gonna try. I may have some from courses I've taken. I just don't remember if I saved like the actual material or not. Because my notes are gonna be zero use to y'all. Trust me on that. But if not, we'll definitely like just open a discussion and I'll just type in the app like what we're gonna talk about and be there. Because I think it's a good one to just be aware of and to also like what can you personally do that'll make a big difference as well. Because I'm a big believer in some certain things that make a difference that I've found works well. I just wanted to make sure I had that right before I start to like plan out. Do you guys have anything to add? Anything you guys want to see come up on like Tuesdays? Pretty happy.
Oh, you know what? I'm off my test. I give it. So if you want to, I don't know if everyone wants to explore something about something medical related, maybe I can jump in and be more, like
more helpful.
Give more time to,
Yeah, think about think about that, because I do think like, you know, when we were talking about injuries and Justin was kind of like, you know, where's the line of, you know, where do we coach and where do we say, hey, this is for another professional? Like, I know there's a lot of realm of that can happen in a box, especially when we get into conversation.
Yeah, we can talk about red flags. We call it like, you know,
things that you can
lower
identify
back
to be.
pain. What's the red flags for lower back pain? If you feel diminish of sensation, those things that, hey, you know what, that's something that you probably have to check with someone else. Or like,
I
you
like
know what,
that.
you're peeing on yourself. You know what? Okay, yeah, that's not something that is gonna go wear off. Something go.
I like that because I do think not everybody always shares stuff like that with their coach, but athletes definitely do share things like that with coach. And I do think it's a good thing to be aware of, to where you can say, hey, like, I need you to go check that out. Because I've had a couple times, I had someone that presented with weird stuff on their fingernails, like these black spots. And
Yeah.
I just remember a conversation from my old job that like that person needed to go check it, and it turned out they had melanoma.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It can be deposits of metal, or it can be like some.
Yeah, it turned out that member had melanoma,
Oh.
like in their fingernail, and I think it was in their fingernail. I don't remember exactly, but it's just like they happened to show me, and I was like, "Ooh, that's not like normal." So yeah, we can do one like that. I'll get with you and see if we can come up with any material and just kind of like go through that stuff. All right, well, cool guys. I would like to. I've been putting together a course that's like very tailored to running a good class. Like it's the 60-minute window is what we're really looking at. I'm kind of up in the air whether I'm gonna run it. I want to do like a sample run through of it before I really like announce it to the world. So I'm a little torn whether I'm gonna kind of go through it with you guys on Tuesday, like the weeks that we do, or if we do a separate time. I'm tempted to do like a separate time for it. So if you guys are like interested in going through that, let me know, because I'm only gonna do like 3 to 5 people. Like I'm not gonna do a big group for it. So if you are interested in something like that at a separate time, shoot me a side text, because I'm gonna start to plan that within the next like couple of weeks. And that's all I've got. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, y'all.